Preparing live stream.
Looks like we're live.
And by now, I'm sure we are live. Welcome back to the Relationship Hotline, everybody. I'm Coach Daniel, and I'm here with Coach Amanda. Amanda, will you please let everybody know what we are talking about today?
My pleasure. So today we're going to talk about how do I know if I'm ready to commit? If you've been in a relationship cycle where you're dating, maybe you're seeing somebody for 3 or 4 months and you get to that critical point where you know it's time to choose if I lean in or if I lean out. We're going to talk about knowing when you're ready to lean in.
We're still good, right? Sorry,
Yeah,
Amanda. I started getting some feedback there. I apologize about that.
no worries.
So, excellent. I'm really excited for this topic because I talk with people who are dating in a lot of different scenarios, right? Some people are looking for different things in relationships. Um, some people want marriage or they want a committed monogamous relationship. Other people are looking for different things. So, can you give us the context of a situation um, where this is coming up for somebody so we can really get clear on what it is we're talking about?
Yeah. So I've uh, had several clients that are starting to see someone. I think there's really two most popular camps here with this. They're seeing someone they've been dating for a few months, and both of them can tell it's ready. It's like they're ready to decide, do I keep investing in this or do I call it and move on? And not everybody experiences that decision point at the same time when they're getting to know someone, but everybody gets to that point. And so that's one experience here that I want to speak to. And then the other one is I've been asked to be in a committed relationship and I need it's not a full immediate yes for me and I don't know. I don't know. And so then it's really about more about self-inquiry. So I think those are two camps that I see most often in my clients when I'm working with them.
Excellent. I mean, I think this is of great interest for a lot of people who are dating in 2025 because it feels like the dating world, if I could call it that, has changed so much and everybody is really navigating this. So, I appreciate you leading this conversation and bringing this conversation up. What do you think the first thing is that people should start to think about if they're answering this question for themselves?
So I think we have kind of two elements here. I want to start with the practical matters. And so those are things that we really, let me take a step back. So often, and I think the older school of thought here was have your checklist. Have your checklist that's about the other person. They're look like this, they work in this way, they have kids or they don't, they're this age, they're this height, whatever that might be. And while I don't think that that's something to completely throw out, having some clarity in what you're attracted to and the things that are really important to you, like your values and things like that is really step one. But we're going to take a step past that, although that's already happened. So if you're in a relationship and starting, or if you're dating and you're not in a committed relationship, but maybe you're starting to question, is this a person that I want to commit with? I think it's important to look at some of the really practical matters in the relationship. It's almost always going to be first about the self, about you. So am I ready to commit? And what does it take for me to be ready to commit? And these practical matters are things we often overlook, but end up becoming significant in how the relationship moves forward and develops. So, for example, so many people, when they say, okay, we're committed, we've got a label on it, we're exclusive, we're, maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever that is, you probably have an idea that you don't even realize you have of what that means. So, what does that change? What does that look like now? And for some people, this is what I mean by getting practical matters out of the way. Am I taking myself off the dating apps now? Because now we're committed. Am I changing a relationship status in social media somewhere? And is that important to me? Like, really, it's about like the announcement and the availability of myself. And so, if you are approaching that point in a relationship where you're in the earlier stages of dating, you're not committed, and the thought of doing those things brings you a lot of contraction in your body or brings up a bunch of stuff, you might not be ready. And that might have nothing to do with the person across from you. It might just be your own stuff. So that's one example. I think another thing that comes up often, and I actually would love to hear your point of view on this too, Daniel, is there are things we think we need to have in ourselves before we can be in a committed relationship. Like, am I making a certain amount of money that I think is necessary for me to feel confident taking that step? Or is there a certain um, like point in my career so that I have enough time? And that's, I think, a really important one too, is do I have the time to invest in this and can make this person a priority in my life? So I want to pass it back to you because I'd really love to hear a male perspective on some of these things, since so often men are put in the position of being the one to initiate these commitment conversations.
Wow, this is such a broad topic to me. Um, and I have so many different ideas coming up. Um, I can think of, to me, I'm thinking immediately of different categories of men. And one category of men, especially if they're on dating apps, is men who don't actually really want to commit because they're happy with their life. They're successful on dating apps. They don't have trouble getting dates. Why not just enjoy variety of dating different women and um, and then be able to have some independence over their own life where they don't really have to get uncomfortable of sharing an apartment or a house or having any financial responsibility for someone else. So there's that category of men that comes to mind. There's the category of men who I think there are men who are solid, eligible bachelors who would actually like to commit. They see the value of having a relationship with somebody. They do want to commit, and I see this. It is funny, I see reels on Instagram where these men very handsome, fit, attractive men, well spoken, and then they do a reel that's funny about how they can't find a girlfriend. And I'm like, okay, there's a disconnect here. I pretty much don't believe you when you're doing a reel. It's like a self-deprecating joke that this handsome, well-spoken man with a solid career can't find a girlfriend. But those men are out there who they do want a partner. They're looking for the partner who meets kind of their standards and expectations and fits into their life the way that they're looking. And the other category of men that comes to mind for me are the men who might be struggling more with their self esteem and maybe are they're not as approaching women as much. They're not initiating relationships as much. And they're asking the questions, do I make enough money? Can I provide? Am I tall enough? Am I physically fit enough or attractive enough? And all of these types of questions. So, I've got different thoughts about different categories when this question comes up. And uh, yeah, I think just having those categories in mind helps to clarify. So, can you help me focus in on what's the big question that we're trying to solve here for people?
I think the big question today, because I do think this might be a series here, is how do I know when I'm
Yeah.
approaching dating that I'm ready to commit? And the reason why I think this is really important, you and I have had personal conversations about this, where we talk about how can I be really honest and transparent on a dating app when I'm dating? Because both you and I are single and dating, not dating each other. We're out in the dating world, dating people, just to be clear. And we'll have conversations about this, which is what do I actually want right now? What can I fit in my life? How do I articulate that clearly in a dating situation? And so that I'm in integrity and so that I'm not having this churn of experiences where I think I want something and then I get what I think I want and then I realize, oh, I'm not ready, or maybe that's not what I wanted. Right. And so I think that's one of the pain points that is really opportune to dig into here. And the way that you get to that point of clarity, if I'm ready, is by first understanding what your practical matters are. And you, I think, hit on it with the contrast between category number two and category number three that you talked about, which is the person who has the appearance of having it all together and ready, and what society thinks readiness for commitment looks like. Solid job, certain amount of money, a certain appearance, things like that, versus the person who still is maybe building up their self-esteem or doesn't have all those categories mastered. And so, if the inquiry there is, what would it take in me to know that I'm ready to commit, is really figuring out, how are you seeing yourself? Are you seeing yourself as somebody who is available for a committed relationship? And then that brings me back to category one, which is there's no shame in not being ready. That's okay. I think it's really my personal take on it as a woman on dating apps is just be clear about it in your profile. Just be clear about what you want. There's nothing wrong with wanting casual. There's nothing wrong with, wanting to be able to go on dates and not have a merging lives type of commitment. You might be surprised at how many men and women are open to that level of dating right now. And so if you are past that and you're like, no, I actually do want more of a commitment, you can define what that is. It might not include merging lives, but I want to be in a committed, exclusive relationship where I'm not dating anyone else, a monogamous relationship, and I'm ready for that commitment. Great. How do you know? What are the questions you need to ask yourself? And those aren't necessarily something that either you or I can prescribe because they're very unique to the individual. And so if I've made a decision that I'm not ready to be in a committed relationship until I change jobs because my job totally sabotages all of my time and takes up so much of my energy that I couldn't commit to somebody, then now you know. Okay, cool. Maybe you do want connection and casual dating is your style right now, and you just need to be upfront about that. Versus somebody who is actively pursuing a committed relationship, there might be some sneakier things happening there where this is where a deeper self-inquiry can come in. So if you've gone through things like just going through a couple of the practical matters first before I switch gears, like what do you need to be able to have the emotional availability for a committed relationship? What would that be for you? Do you have some things you need to work through with a therapist or a coach? Do you have some big pains from a recent breakup that you're not settled with yet? Maybe those need to be handled first. Are you physically ready for a committed relationship? When I say physical, I'm also talking about, I think, things like, I don't know, there's a word I'm not coming up with, but do you have the income that you think you need to be able to do that commitment? Because whatever that looks like for you. If committed means I'm fully providing for another person, that might be a bigger question than if you think of committed means for the next 2 years, we're staying in separate homes and are self-sufficient from each other financially, but we're not seeing anybody else. We're not having sex with anybody else, right? So really getting clear even on what does that mean? And so are you physically ready? And then that can also be more of the psychological readiness too, which is what am I making this commitment mean? And that's where we get into more of the deeper personal inquiry, I think, which is do I make committed relationship mean something about me or the other person? Is this going to make me expect different things from that person once we're committed? And this is what I see in my clients most often, which is they're like, I don't know, are we boyfriend and girlfriend yet? How do I know? And I'm like, well, you know when you talk about it. That's how you know. You don't assume. You know when you have a out loud conversation about it and whatever label you choose to put on it. But one of the most important parts of that readiness between two people is what changes in my mind when we go from we're dating to now we're exclusive and we're together. Because some people that they might not have full awareness of what that's supposed to change because this can be deeply rooted in how we were raised and what we saw our parents do and all the movies we've watched as a kid and as a teen and whatever rom-com series you're currently watching. And so I think there's a lot to this inquiry of what do I need to be ready to commit? Like, what are my non-negotiables, both in myself and potentially in the other person? And then what would make me not be ready? And so if you can get clear on both sides of that equation of this is what it would take for me to say yes, let's go, and this is what I would have to know is like totally clear, this is a no for me, so that I can eliminate those non-negotiables fully, and then I'm not surprised. Like an example of this is I've seen people go to the committed, take the step over the bridge of I'm now committed and now we're boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever that means. And one person assumes that means we're moving in together as soon as possible. And the other person had that not even close on their radar. And so that created a really big rupture in their relationship and a lot of pain because the person that thought they were going to be moving in really felt rejected. And it had nothing to do with that. It wasn't about them at all. It was just literally not having the discussion ahead of time of what does this mean that I'm ready to commit. And so I think there's some skill sets too. I'll just leave it at this last part that you need to be ready for in moving into a committed relationship, which hopefully you have some of these already by the time you're having a discussion around this. But if you don't, then these are things you want to put on your list of skills to build with your partner. Things like repair, vulnerability, the stuff that you and I talk about all the time on these shows. Because when you take that step and now there's more pressure, if you will, in the relationship once it's committed, hopefully it doesn't feel like pressure. Hopefully it feels like freedom. And that actually would be a really good indicator that you're ready to commit with this person is the idea of committing doesn't feel like pressure, it feels like freedom. That's perfect. But if it feels like pressure, you need to uncover why. And those are probably conversations that need to be had before you're making that step.
Right, absolutely. Lots of good food for thought in here, and lots of great questions for anybody to chew on as they're navigating their own dating experience. Um, I think one of the concepts I've been playing with recently is is the concept of having a relationship mindset as opposed to more of an independence mindset, which I think a lot of us have been, not everybody, but a lot of people in our culture um, really value independence and self-sufficiency and see going into a relationship as a sacrifice. Oh, I'm gonna have to give up my independence and freedom. I mean, I don't think that way at all, personally. I'm gaining a relationship as long as it's a relationship that is enhancing my life, right? Um, so that's a good question for people to consider. Do you see getting into a relationship as a sacrifice, like you're going to have to give up something you want? And just to be clear, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having an independence mindset, and I think you agree with me, right, Amanda?
Yeah.
if but what we're asking for is honesty, is be clear and honest with yourself and then honest with others. And this always gets me into trouble with men, by the way, because um I will talk with men who are successful on the dating apps, we'll put it that way, and they can sleep with pretty much as many women as they want. And they know that the easiest way to do that is to just say that you want a long-term committed relationship. Just say it. Then you get into bed. And then after that, you've already gotten what you wanted. So men like who have already figured out that formula for themselves about how to get the physical uh, relationships that they want, they look negatively at men who are upfront and honest because those men will miss out on opportunities, right? They could have lied and got something, but they don't. At the same time, as you and I have talked about at length, Amanda, um, if you're in the category of wanting a committed relationship where you have what's actually an authentic, secure connection with somebody, that's going to be built on trust and honesty.
Mhm.
Another big question. Okay, well, I'll just touch briefly on the self-esteem issue. So, the question of do I have enough money? Am I good looking enough? Whatever it is that's coming up for somebody and questioning your value there. My big advice to anybody who's questioning their self-esteem is solve your self-esteem before getting into a relationship because if you get into a relationship with low self-esteem, you're going to basically expect poor treatment because you don't think highly of yourself, so you're not expecting anybody else to treat you high like as somebody worthy of good treatment, and it's going to be painful for you. So solve that first. Big cautionary warning there. And we could speak more to that, but maybe on another episode. Here's the third thing that's really coming up for me is a lot of people who I talk with have been burned so many times. It really only takes one being burned in one or two major relationships to really make you take a step back and say, gosh, is this even worth it? And so I have a friend who's had, two major relationships, never married, but two long-term relationships with men, and she's just not interested in dating anymore. And if that's, she says she's happy, so hey, if you're happy, don't change anything. Um, I do think that relationships bring a lot of value to our life. They don't have to be an intimate romantic relationship. It could be friendships, family. Um, it could be relationships with your children or giving in your community, contributing. All those are valid. Um, then, but I can understand somebody who's been burned. I also speak with men. All right, I'm going to get specific because you know me how I love to be concrete and specific. It's the way my brain works. Two big categories that I have for men. This it all comes down to trust. And for women too. Women, can I trust? Yes, I've had men present themselves one way, and then it takes a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then you find out they were presenting something that wasn't real, or at least that couldn't be sustained. And so they've been burned, and now you say, oh, now I got to start over at the beginning and go through this again. And it could be men. I could go on. It could be somebody not being emotionally available, presenting themselves as emotionally available, and then not later. That's a common one. Sometimes I see men presenting themselves one way, and then this just came up recently. He said he was divorced, and he was divorced, but he was still paying for things for his ex-wife. Wait a sec. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but if you still got a real connection with your ex, and personally, I wouldn't want my daughter or one of my friends or my clients going into a relationship with somebody who still has that kind of connection with their ex and wasn't upfront about it in the beginning, and it seems kind of sketchy, and why isn't there a clean break there? So this kind of, it could be anything. That's just one random example. But this kind of not presenting upfront what the truth is, and it comes out 2 or 3 months later, and then now how can I trust?
Mm.
All right, so here was the thing that I've been hesitating to say about the men who I talk with. So again, a lot of people, especially, you know, we're in our 40s, so 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s have been through either long-term relationships that have ended or divorce, and it can be hard to trust again. And so for a lot of men, they say, "Well, how do I know?" And I know we could help them solve this. How do I know that you're not just going to have a physical sexual relationship with me up front, and then as soon as we get committed, cut it off? Because that's happened to a lot of men. And all the women say, "Well, he wasn't doing something right. That's why." Okay, that's what I usually hear online. It was his fault. He wasn't doing something right. Um, but there's how do I trust that you're going to keep that commitment? And then if it's going toward marriage, a lot of men have been burned financially. I'm contributing a lot financially, and then I end up in family court, and now I'm losing a lot. And even after our relationship is ended, I still have to keep supporting you financially after our relationship is over, and I'm getting nothing in return for that. So, men have I see a lot of mistrust in those areas. So I think the mistrust is valid for both genders, right? This is not a gender issue, but the that can be a big issue for people when they're deciding, am I ready to commit to a relationship? How am I going to get the trust that I need in order to commit to a relationship? So I just threw a lot out there, Amanda. Can I just open it up to allow you to react?
Yeah, I took some notes. You could probably see me taking some notes. Okay, so the very first thing I want to say that's like an undercurrent to all of this, and you've heard me say this before, is I really think fundamentally there's there's a need for all people dating to release the shame around casual dating. There's, I mean, this goes to deep, deep undercurrents of shame around desiring sex, desiring anything casual, and this concept that if you're not dating for marriage, then you're a sinner, a bad person, whatever that might be, whatever that label is. If we can stop the shame and just own that we want something casual, it would free men up to be honest on the apps, say they want something casual and they're not prepared to commit. And it would free up women from having to show up with a conscious or subconscious need to say, well, every time I date, it's for a relationship. Because there's a lot of women out here that want casual, and both men and women, I see this so often. Um, I'm dating and casual, but if I fall in love, I'm open to that. And it's this like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That line I've seen, I can't tell you how many times on dating apps and every dating app I've ever been on, including the ones I'm on now. Like, interested in dates and having fun, but if something works out, I'm open to something more. And I'm like, could you be any less clear on what you actually want? Of course, people can fall in love through dating casually. Of course they can. But the fact that the men are putting open to more if it works out is because they don't want to miss out on the vast amount of women who are approaching dating from I'll only date if you want a relationship, where there's a lot of women who aren't ready to commit to a relationship, even though society tells them that's what they should be working towards. And so if we could, I know I'm asking for a lot, but that's fundamentally like I challenge anyone listening to this to go back and look at how they're approaching dating and see if they're operating from a subconscious place of, well, if I say that, then that makes me a bad person, or that makes me a slut, or that makes me a bad guy, or predator, or unsafe, right? Because the truth is, your honesty is the way to create safety for anybody.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's like
Say that again.
fundamental.
How do we create safety? And this goes to trust as well, which is totally broken in today's dating market.
Yes.
It's totally broken in today's dating world, and so many people have been burned. What was it again, Amanda?
The way we create safety is through our honesty.
Yes.
Yes, because then you're giving the other person the opportunity to lean in or to lean back and manage their own safety. And it's totally valid if casual doesn't feel safe to you. That's okay. Totally valid, right? And I've been in the situation where I've dated men who approach the relationship like we're moving towards a relationship. I want something long term with you. And then it turns out they actually just want something casual. I've been in that situation and it was hurtful. I've also been in a situation where, and this has been a long time from now for me, but before I realized that I was allowed as a woman to want to date casually, I did approach everything like it was a relationship. And then I felt really self-righteous and being mad at the man for not wanting the commitment. But it was a great way for me to sabotage and get out too.
Mm.
And so I think both men and women need to own these behaviors and be really brutally honest with themselves about what do I want? And it's okay to want it. It's okay to want to take a break from dating. That doesn't make you like, the old lady with the cats. You're not on that track just because you're taking a couple years off. And if you want to be an old lady with cats, okay. more power to you. I have some recommendations for battery powered things if that's the case. So if you are seriously, um,
No
but
shame in that either.
no,
It's not an
right.
insult. Men throw that around online like it's an insult. Oh, you're gonna be an old lady with cats, like it's an insult. So, if she's happy, that's not an insult.
I know a lot of women in their 40s and 50s that are single right now that are having the time of their lives sexually because they are allowing themselves to be curious. They're going to play parties, they're going to events where they get to explore their sexuality, and there's no commitment. And that's a freedom that in society we didn't have even 20 years ago that we have today. And so again, there's no shame in wanting to explore. So I think that's like the fundamental thing I wanted to respond to and the whole concept of please stop putting on your dating app, I'm open to casual, but if something works out, I'm open to more. Be clear, make a choice, take a stand, be honest with yourself and with everyone else. Um, and I also wanted to speak to the idea of relationships as a really important way to heal. So you had mentioned like handle your self-esteem stuff first. And I feel like that happens in layers because you can do a ton of healing on your own, a ton of healing on your own, and not realize you still have things to heal when you're in a relationship because it's in a way easier to heal in isolation or with somebody non-romantic because you're not being triggered. And so take the efforts to work on yourself and your self-esteem, absolutely. And then prepare yourself for the fact that you are going to get re-triggered into your self-esteem issues as soon as you're in a relationship, and that that is actually still part of your healing. And so we all have self-esteem stuff. Like nobody's going to be fully healed of anything ever. We're always going to have insecurities. And those insecurities evolve as we grow. And they just kind of morph into new versions of whatever they were. And it's in relationship that you get to have that mirror so that somebody is reflecting back to you and triggering you into your insecurities. And so my thought on it is this. If you know, like let's go to attachment theory. If you know you are more leaning towards an anxious attachment style and you've worked really hard on that and now you're entering the dating scene and you're dating someone and you are more secure than maybe you were in the past. But you start to realize like this is where that self-inquiry comes in. If you are feeling like you're ready to move into commitment, why? What are you getting out of that? What does it do for you? Am I going to be soothing the part of me that wants the security of knowing we're committed now and I don't have to be constantly like anxious about it? Then that is something for you to work on as opposed to trying to use commitment as a way to soothe yourself. And on the opposite, which is an avoidant person, maybe you are more secure than you were in the past. That's amazing. And you're being approached in the relationship like, whoa, what are we? That question. What are we that comes up? And an avoidant's going to be like, I don't want to define it. Hold on. Things are moving too fast. I need some space from this. Maybe feeling fear of, getting trapped or having obligation emotionally to somebody else. Why are you dating? What are you getting out of it? That's the question to ask yourself if you tend to lean more avoidant. Are you in a person who needs to stay casual or have a ton of spaciousness in your relationship for a really long time? Then you need to be very honest in the early stages with that person you're dating that, hey, I'm going to slow roll this for like 2 years because that's how long it takes for me to feel like I can really feel like comfortable with someone in my life. Those are the kinds of things we have to own in ourselves. Somebody that's anxious and wants commitment as soon as possible starts treating the relationship like it's a relationship in week two. That's not healthy behavior. And somebody that says, well, I don't know if I can ever commit, maybe shouldn't be dating people who want some point of commitment. I mean, needs to stay in that casual space. Again, it's not a judgment. It's really just an honest evaluation of readiness that needs to be a self-responsibility for anybody getting into the dating world.
Yeah, that's really good. And that brings us to the recent research that you just shared with me this past week about our intention getting into dating and the people who the people who got into dating because they thought that they should, or they got into dating not really knowing what they want, not really knowing why they're even there. They did not have good success finding any kind of committed relationship. The people who got into dating because at Thanksgiving their family was pressuring them. Somebody else tells you that they think you should be. Your friends who are married tell you, "Oh, when are you gonna find somebody?" And so you're like, oh, "Okay, fine, I'll get on an app." And those people did not have success finding a partner, but the people who knew what they wanted and why. They were intentional, they knew what they wanted, they knew why they wanted it, and um, and then also from our work, with attachment and people's attachment styles, we know if you're getting into a relationship from an anxious perspective, feeling anxious, I need somebody to validate me, I need somebody to soothe me, I need somebody else to be with me so that I know that I'm okay. That's going to get you into problems. And if on the other side, if you're getting into a relationship where you don't really like being committed to people, you don't really like being obligated to anybody, you don't enjoy closeness with people, well, then that's the kind of thing you want to be honest with people up front about.
Yeah, I think because we're taught, it's socially here in the US in particular, that being in a long-term committed marriage is the ideal. And we celebrate over and over again. Every year, anniversary is a celebration. We made it this many years. And fundamentally, I think we should be asking, am I happy year over year as opposed to rewarding just years together?
Hmm.
Um, I think that the concept of I'm going to date for a long time and that churn might for some people feel really painful and for some people might feel like the variety they desire. And so there needs to be an overall level of acceptance that the dating world has changed because society has changed. And we have to stop really villainizing people who want to be out there and experiencing variety. Just like we need to stop villainizing. And I see some of this, I think men get more villainized for the desiring variety. And I think women get more villainized for wanting commitment. And neither of those things should be villainized. Like, how many memes have I seen or even been told in dating? Like, why do women always want to put a label on it so quick? And it's like, well, if somebody's asking for a label, they're asking for clarity. It's a bid for connection. They want to know, are we headed in the same direction? Right? It's not an attack. And on the other hand, a man who is not interested in committing is not a rejection of you, but he may be in a place where he doesn't know himself well enough yet to be committing to one person. And if we can stop seeing that as a negative thing and just see it as different points of readiness, then I think we could all have a lot more fun dating and save ourselves a lot of pain.
I love this. We were just talking about how can we help people make dating fun and enjoyable? Because for so many people, it feels like something they dread. And oh gosh, I'd love to have a partner, but geez, it's so much work and getting burned. And yes, it comes back to honesty.
Mhm.
And how can we be honest? Well, first we have to know what we even feel
Yeah.
and what we even want. So, and then be willing to be vulnerable enough to say it. Because maybe somebody will shame you or somebody will, criticize you for what you say, but that's the only way. Okay, Amanda, I have one other question that
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to answer today, maybe save it for another episode, because when we started asking this question, what would it take for me or you to be ready to commit to a relationship with somebody? And we've answered a lot of that. Trust, and be knowing what we want. A lot of that's really important. Being able to evaluate how we feel. Um, that's all very important. The other thing that came up for me is, well, what is it like? Why I'm happy single. why would I even get into a relationship? And it would be if somebody's going to enhance my life.
Mm.
And a lot of people, a lot of my friends are this way. They're happy. Why would they? Now I'm going to be really specific about two things. I don't know. First off, should we answer that question now? I think we can.
I think we can hint to it, but I
Yeah.
think we could go another hour on that one. So maybe we add it to our upcoming topics list.
Okay. So here's what comes to mind for me. There's really only okay, there's a few ways I could see a relationship enhancing life. One is one is look, physical affection is wonderful. Companionship, that's wonderful. And I can't get that outside of a relationship. Like, I mean, well, that's actually more
Not fully
complicated.
true.
Not fully
Yeah.
true, but it is nice, right? So it is nice to have that relationship where that's reliable. You have one person to share it with. You can do it very safely without a lot of headaches. Maybe you have a different perspective on everything that I'm saying right now. Because that really is your specialty more than mine. Okay. Number two, here's one thing as a man that I love about having a woman in my life is I love a woman with good intuition and wisdom. And if she's somebody who I can go to and say, "Hey, what blind spots am I missing?" Like I approach a relationship as a team, right? So it's super valuable to me if I have somebody on my team who is wise and intuitive and can say, "Hey, you're not giving yourself enough rest," or "Hey, you had that client contact you and you didn't call them back. What are you thinking? Are you self-sabotaging? Like what's going?" Those kinds of things. It's brilliant. And having a woman's intuition as a man, I find super valuable. And then the third thing that I see is teaming up financially, especially in 2025. It's more and more difficult to afford a house, to afford whatever it is that we want, vacations, whatever. So teaming up financially and pooling resources, super valuable. Those are ways that I could see a relationship enhancing my life. And of course, love, right? Love is a wonderful thing. Deepening intimacy with somebody is a wonderful thing. Um, so that's what came to mind for me. I know I'm just putting you on the spot off the top of your head. Do you want to speak to that for a moment?
Sure. So I just want to reflect back in the way that a woman does. Some things I heard from
Yeah,
you, which is you just described to me some of your clarities on what would it take for me to want to commit to someone.
yeah,
And so if somebody that you are seeing or dating, or even maybe in a friendship, and you realize, oh my gosh, this is what this person provides for me, and this is critical for me in a long-term relationship, you just explain some of the clarity. And so it can look like a list of benefits, right? But knowing that this would be something that needs to be present for me to experience with another person before I'm like, yeah, I can see me doing life with you. And I think that that's really, really important. I think that what you hit on there too, and this is where I think we could have a whole other separate call just on this, but um, when you talk about what enhancing your life looks like, that's going to be probably pretty unique to each individual. Like for me, where I'm at right now, I can't imagine if I committed to somebody in the next like 3 months, let's say, being like, yep, I can uproot my life and we can move in together and I will want to be in the household and be that nurturer to you. I crave being that nurturer to somebody, but I don't, there's logistics in my life and commitments right now that are not conducive to that happening in the short term. And so I wouldn't be compatible with someone if they are seeking, like immediately wanting to have that living together bond type of a thing. And that wouldn't mean that we're not compatible, but it means like timing's off or um, maybe we're not right for each other right now. So I think it's really good to have clarity on those things and be able to have these discussions with the person you're with. And I think for women, and men both getting really clear on what does that enhancement feel like, not just think like, right? Because we can say without realizing that we're adhering to somebody else's checklist. Like I want a person who has these same belief systems as me. And it's like, cool. What if a person believes in it a little different than you, but the outcome of their behavior is the same? Is it the
Good
belief that matters?
question.
Or is it the behavior and how they show up in the world that matters, right?
Mhm.
That was a big shift for me when I realized I don't have to have the same religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs as somebody because the way that they use the constructs they have to get to the behaviors they embody might not be the same as me, but the behaviors they embody mesh with mine. So that's good. So that was clarity for me. So I think having a really strong understanding, and you get this through experience as much as you do through like reading a book or listening to our workshops, is sometimes you have to date and it not go the way you expected or wanted or whatever, so that you get to that clarity. And so even like as we're wrapping up, I'm thinking, okay, but we also don't want to leave anybody with the idea that if you are in this churn of dating and it not working out or getting to the commitment point and you say no or they say no, I don't want that with you or I'm not ready for that, that doesn't mean you failed. You probably just got a lot of learning and a lot of lessons for yourself. And sometimes also, I love the word titration. I use this word all the time. Going in and having an experience and then slowing things down or taking a step back. And that can happen inside the relationship while you're dating, or it can happen because you're dating and then you're taking a break and you're dating, you're taking a break. Like how many people listening to this right now have gone on the dating apps for 3 months and then get off the dating apps for 3 months? There's a reason why the subscriptions are 3 months at a time. That's how long people have the capacity to actively date. So that came up. And then there was one last thing I wanted to say too, which is the irony of wanting the long-term relationship, that sense of the person that I'm with already has all the context of my life and who I am. I don't have to explain myself over and over again. Like the burnout that can happen from dating new people over and over and over again is why sometimes people dating have all of their dating questions saved in the notes in their phone and they just copy paste because we end up saying the same things about ourselves over and over and over again, trying to create the baseline of get to know me. And one of the beautiful things about long term, even if it's dating and not committed relationship, is they have the context of who you are. You don't have to start over so often. And so I think that gets missed so much in what would it take for me. Number one, avoiding the act of dating and having to talk about yourself over and over again is not a good enough reason to commit. That's not, it shouldn't be that alone. But also, putting a little extra development and work into getting into the commitment is important too, right? Because you've built context with that person and that investment is still valid. So I know that's not a conclusion, but I think it's something that should be included in your concepts of what is enhancing, what is this person doing to enhance my life, or how do I get to enhance theirs? Don't forget about the benefit of the same way we really value long-term friendships.
Yeah,
It's having that already built trust and context there that's really, really beautiful.
very cool. Okay, I have maybe one or two other questions, and then we'll wrap up. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. One question. One of the things that I hear women complain about online is men wanting a partner because they want someone to cook and clean for them. Now, is this something that should be shamed? Is this something that men should change? I have never personally, I've never gone into a relationship thinking I want somebody to cook and clean for me. I don't know whether it was the way my parents raised me or whatever. I just always thought that men and women share equal responsibility for cooking and cleaning.
Hmm.
And I guess it's the way I was brought up. I never questioned that. I still agree with that today. So that's not something that I look for somebody to enhance my life by cooking and cleaning for me. Okay. Um, what about, I don't know, do you have a reaction to that? What do you think about men who do want that as something in a relationship?
I I think you get to want what you want. And you also need to realize that by having certain criteria, you may be eliminating people in the dating field for you, right? And just like there are plenty of women, I hear men complain constantly, women just want me to pay their bills. It's like say tit for tat, same, different, exact responsibility that you're putting on the other person. But that is a relationship construct. And if you're looking for that, be honest about it. Like, I'm really looking for somebody to come into my life because I want to play this role and I want them to play that role. And there are women who are going to be like, yeah, I'm in. If you do this for me, I'm happy to do this for you. I think a maybe more current version of this that I see is people, well, people wanting men and women wanting something very specific, like I want somebody that was going to, go to the gym with me or be a business partner with me, or there's these like elements of enmeshment into each other's hobbies that are expected that aren't quite the same as like a more traditional, like I want you to cook and clean for me
Mm.
type of a thing. But it's like, what are your expectations of what being in that committed relationship look like? Like, for example, I'm seeing right now a lot of men in my age group that are dating on dating apps say things like, I want a woman who can go on spontaneous trips and travel the world with me. And I'm like, that's amazing. And I'm not the one because I have a 9-year-old and I can't do that.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so, it's not that there's anything wrong with that desire. It's just me knowing, hey, if that's so important to you that it's at the top of your dating profile, then I'm not even going to bother matching with you because right out the gate, I can't do that. It's not going to work for me. So if somebody, say I'm really looking for a traditional partner who wants to do these domestic things for me, I'd be like, awesome. Moving on. I'm not the one for that.
Right. Right.
That's okay. And so I think it really comes back to that honesty, but also check your own expectations too of are you showing up with self-righteousness around that desire? Because if you think everyone should want what you want, then that's a whole other problem.
Cool. Okay, last question and we're wrapping up. And my kids keep coming in to say hello. You want to say hi? Hello,
Hey,
you're live on Facebook right now.
I love your glasses.
She just had a birthday.
Happy birthday.
Okay, my last question, should you choose to answer, is what are some common things that you think women uh can, and again, we're speaking in a heterosexual context
Right.
for most of this, and would say would enhance their lives, because I gave some suggestions of what I thought, how I thought a woman could enhance my life as a man. I think, I know this is very individualized, but I think
Sure.
a lot of men could relate to similar things.
Right.
What do you
So
think?
I'll take a shot at it.
Sure.
Right. And obviously the disclaimer of I'm not speaking for all women.
Give me a few minutes,
But
honey. I'll come out in 5 minutes.
in context, where I'm at in my life and the things that I'm looking for as a woman who can financially take care of herself, and I'm not expecting a lot of traditional things. Um, as far as like this is exactly the men's role and this is exactly the woman's role. The things that in a relationship and would enhance my life is that sense of intimacy that comes in and across all elements of intimacy. Like the person who knows me so I can sit in silence with them and co-regulate. The person who um, knows knows me well enough to be able to reflect back to me when I'm being my not self, when I'm being a bitch, when I'm overstressed, when I need to sit down and drink water and touch grass and calm down because I'm overreacting to something. But it's because we've built trust. And so that person has enough trust in me for me to receive that from a place of love and also can give it to me from a place of love. So it's kind of like we're kind of getting into some of that masculine feminine polarity. But when you talked about the woman's intuition and their ability to come to you to push you and help you rise, I think I want something similar from a man, which is somebody that I can crash out against who can just hold me, who's a safe place for me to have those emotions, who doesn't take it as me saying, I need something else from you, or you need to jump in and fix it, right? And then also, I need somebody to help me fix things. Very, very practical matter. I had to change out the battery in my car this week. And opened my hood and popped the hood and looked, and where I thought the battery would be was fuses. It turns out my battery in my vehicle is under this passenger seat of my car. And there was no way that by myself, with the tools I own and all of that, I was like, I need help. I'm going to have to go ask probably a man in my life that can help me to do this thing I thought I could totally do on my own. And I probably have some girlfriends too that could have, been of help. But the thought that crossed my mind is, this is one of those things where I really wish I had a life partner that could even be the second pair of hands regardless, right? Like if somebody, because also I am bisexual. And so the idea of it doesn't matter for me if it's a male or female. I really needed that masculine energy to be in my life to help me with the overwhelm, to take a breath when I realized I had two batteries in my car and it was going to be a $400 replacement, not 200. Like things like that, where I was like, I just need somebody to be able to react to this that can hold the space for me, but then also literally help me remove the passenger seat of my car because it's not a one person job for me. And so sometimes there's practical things. Just like for men, there's probably practical things like nobody can make mac and cheese like I can. And if my partner knows that about me and they love my mac and cheese, they're going to feel really loved and nurtured when I'm like, I made your favorite thing. So it is very unique, I think, to the individual, but also it's really important to have clarity to what does that look like for you? And if that person that you're getting to know and dating actually can provide those things and is already showing up in some of those ways for you, why wouldn't you commit? What are you making commitment mean? What are you afraid of on the other side of it? And is that valid? Because it could be really valid. But more times than not, what I see in relationships is that hesitation to commit is just a fear of repeating the past, of getting rejected at some point to somebody you lean into, or not being able to provide or show up in the way that that other person expects of you, even if you don't even know what they expect of you.
Absolutely. Well, I love it. Thank you to everybody who's watching. I see Brian and Tara and John on. I don't know who else is on right now. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing those thoughts. I can see as we talk about it more that it is very individualized about what we are looking for. Even the examples I gave, I can see, okay, yeah, I could see how different men would be looking for different things. So, good to know yourself. No shame. Be honest. Take the risk of telling people what you actually want and being honest with them.
Yeah.
That's how we're going to rebuild trust and safety in dating. And yeah, and then if somebody is honest with you and you don't agree with them, hey, thank you for being honest with me. Not, you shouldn't want that, right? Not shaming, but thank you for being honest. So, Amanda, thank you for bringing up this topic. Thank you for leading this conversation. Um, Really powerful stuff. I hope it helped a lot of people. And the relationship hotline is available. We cover topics of interest in for relationships, whether you're dating or in a committed relationship. In 2025, relationships are changing and people are evolving. So we cover some of the deep, important topics here. And in addition, you can register to call into the show and you can call in and get advice and guidance from me and Amanda live. I mean, we have invested our lives into becoming experts on relationships, and this is the only way to get coaching without having to pay for it. So it's an opportunity. Otherwise, you got to pay us. So
Right.
if you're gonna call, if you so great opportunity for those of you who want it. It's a resource for members of the Thriving Relationships group on Facebook. If you don't know how to get to the Thriving Relationships group or you don't know how to register to call in to the relationship hotline, you can reach out to me on Facebook, facebook.com/Daniel William Robertson. Um, you can also reach me at danielrobertson.com. Amanda, what are the best ways for people to reach you if they want to reach you?
The best way to reach me is through my website, which is amandamonk.net. And you can find me on Facebook under Amanda Monk. You can find me on Instagram under With the Lights On. And I do want to just mention, so we didn't get into, and I want to save this for a next topic, just hit setting up scenes for this. Um, I think it's really important that we talk about something I left off, which is the sexual intimacy that can enhance your life as part of it. We kind of avoided that, not on purpose. I think that's really important to talk about next time. So if that's something that you are dying to talk to somebody about and you want a male and female perspective, definitely call into our next show next week. And I have an event coming up that I'm really excited about in October in the Denver area. It's called Kink Bound. And so if you're somebody who is really interested in exploring and seeing really well done professional level demos of all the kinky things, then reach out to me and I'll get you information about the event.
Definitely reach out. And if you're not in the Denver area, make it a reason to visit Denver.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a fun vacation. So thank you, Amanda, for being here. Thank you to those of you who are watching. And if you're live on Facebook, hello, feel free to, drop us comments, let us know. Feel free to reach out to us. We love hearing from you. And with that, we wish you a beautiful day. See you next week.